I never thought I'd be standing on my own daughter's porch at 58 years old, begging for a place to sleep. My name is Margaret Brennan. For 32 years, I worked as a senior administrator at Sterling Falls Medical Center in Pennsylvania. Started as a file clerk when I was 26, worked my way up through medical records, billing, and finally to administrative coordinator. Good benefits, steady paycheck, respect. Then last March, the hospital system merged with a larger corporation. Restructuring, they called it. My position was redundant. After 3 decades of service, I got a form letter and 8-week severance. I remember packing up my office, trying not to cry in front of the younger staff. 32 years of my life in 2 cardboard boxes. First person I called was my daughter, Jennifer. "Mom, I'm at SoulCycle," she said, breathless. "Can this wait? I lost my job, honey. They eliminated my position." Silence. Then, "Oh, that's unfortunate. Listen, I really need to finish this class. I'll call you later." He didn't call back. I sat in my car in that parking garage for an hour, just staring at nothing. My husband, Robert, died 6 years ago. Heart attack at 57, just dropped dead in the driveway one Saturday morning. Jennifer was our only child, and after Robert died, I thought we'd become closer. When she got engaged to Paul, I helped with the wedding. $45,000. Most of my savings. Paul's family had money, but his parents said they didn't believe in extravagant celebrations. So I stepped up. That's what mothers do. 2 years ago, when Jennifer and Paul were buying their house, I gave them $35,000 for the down payment. Robert's life insurance money. The money I was supposed to use for retirement. "Mom, this house is our dream," Jennifer had said, hugging me. "We'll never forget this." I'd been there for everything. Every scraped knee, every breakup, every triumph. I was in the delivery room when she was born. I taught her to read. I stayed up all night helping her with college applications. And now I was unemployed at 58. Nobody wants to hire a 58-year-old administrator when they can get someone 35 for half the salary. I sent out resume after resume. Nothing. For months after I lost my job, the bank sent the foreclosure notice. I was losing my house. The house where Robert and I raised Jennifer. Where we'd hosted birthday parties and holiday dinners. Where Robert collapsed in the driveway and I held him, screaming for help that came too late. I called Jennifer. "Honey, I need to talk to you about something important." "Mom, I'm at brunch with the girls. Can it wait?" "No, sweetheart. The bank is foreclosing on the house. I have 60 days. I heard her excuse herself from the table. When she came back on, her voice had that edge. "Foreclosing? What happened to all your money? I gave most of it to you. The wedding, your down payment. Mom, that was years ago. You should have been more careful with your spending." My throat tightened. "I've been trying to find work. Nobody's hiring. I was thinking, maybe I could stay with you and Paul for a while. Just until I get back on my feet. Stay with us. Just temporarily. Few months, maybe. You have that extra bedroom. I won't get in your way." Long silence. "Mom, I need to discuss this with Paul." "Of course. Thank you, honey. I really appreciate." I said I need to discuss it. I'm not making promises. 3 days later she called back. "Paul and I talked about it. We can give you the guest room. But Mom, we have our lives here. This is temporary." "I understand. Thank you so much, Jenny. You don't know how much." 3 months. That's it. That gives you time to find something and figure out your situation. 3 months. 90 days to rebuild a life I'd spent nearly 40 years building. "That's fair," I said, trying not to cry. "I'll make it work. And Mom, we're going to need you to contribute. It's only fair." My hands started shaking. "Of course. Whatever you need." I moved into Jennifer and Paul's house on a Thursday. The house was stunning. 4 bedrooms, chef's kitchen, those floor-to-ceiling windows everyone wants now. The neighborhood was Sterling Creek Estates, the new development where houses started at $450,000. My $35,000 helped buy this house. Jennifer answered the door. She didn't hug me. Shoes off at the door, she said. Paul doesn't like outdoor shoes on the hardwood. I slipped off my flats and picked up my 2 suitcases. Guest room is upstairs, last door on the right. You'll share the hallway bathroom with guests when we entertain, so keep it presentable. Of course, honey. She led me upstairs without asking if I needed help with the luggage. The guest room was nice. A queen bed with gray linens, a dresser, a single window. Here, Jennifer said, handing me a laminated piece of paper. Paul made a list of house rules. Please follow them. I looked at the paper. House rules for guest room. 1. Rent. $500 per month, due on the 1st. No late payments. 2. Utilities contribution. $200 per month. 3. Quiet hours. 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., no TV, no phone calls. 4. Kitchen access. 7 to 8 a.m., 12 to 1 p.m., 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. only. 5. No food in bedroom. 6. Bathroom must be spotless after each use. 7. No guests without 48 hours advance notice. 8. Laundry. Saturdays only, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., maximum 2 loads. 9. Living room/common areas by invitation only. 10. 90-day limit. Non-negotiable. $700 a month. My unemployment was only $1,100. These are detailed, I said softly. We have a lifestyle here, Mom. We can't have it disrupted. If you don't like the terms, I'm sure there are studios for rent in town. Studios I'd already checked. $1,200 a month minimum plus utilities. No, it's fine. Thank you for taking me in. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mom. Paul and I have friends over most weekends. When we're entertaining, it's probably best if you stay in your room. That first night, I unpacked my 2 suitcases. Everything I owned that mattered. Photos of Robert. Jennifer's baby pictures. My mother's jewelry. Downstairs I could hear Jennifer and Paul laughing, music playing. Nobody came up to check on me. Nobody asked if I was settling in okay. I was 58 years old, and I was a tenant in my daughter's house. The next morning I woke at 6 a.m., my usual time. I went downstairs at 6:45, hoping to make myself useful. Maybe cook breakfast for everyone. I was pulling eggs from the refrigerator when Paul walked in wearing his running gear. Margaret, he said. Never Mom or even Maggie. Always Margaret. Kitchen hours are 7 to 8 a.m. You're early. I was just going to make breakfast for everyone. We have a schedule. Jennifer has her smoothie at 7:15. I eat after my run at 7:30. The kitchen needs to be clear by 8 o'clock. I could make. Margaret. His voice was sharp. Rules are rules. Please go back upstairs until 7 o'clock. I put the eggs back and went to my room. At 7 o'clock exactly I came back down. Paul was making an egg white omelette. Jennifer was blending something green and expensive looking. Morning, Mom, Jennifer said without looking up. Good morning, sweetheart. Can I make some coffee? Sure, but use the small pot, not the large one. That's for when we have company. I made coffee in the small pot. There was barely enough for 1 cup. I sat at the kitchen island trying to be invisible. So Mom, Jennifer said, scrolling on her phone. Have you applied for jobs today? Honey, it's 7 a.m. You should be online first thing. The early bird gets the worm, right? Paul glanced at me. Jennifer mentioned you worked in hospital administration. Have you considered retail? I saw Target is hiring. I have 32 years of management experience. Right, but you need income now. Can't be picky. I swallowed my coffee, burning my tongue. You're right. I'll look into everything. After breakfast, toast and coffee, since I didn't want to use too much of their food, I went back to my room and spent 3 hours applying for jobs online. At 11:45 my stomach was growling. I went downstairs at 11:58, waiting for the noon lunch window. The kitchen was locked. Actually locked. There was a new keypad lock on the kitchen door. I texted Jennifer. "Honey, the kitchen is locked." She responded immediately. "Oh right. Forgot to mention. Code is 2847. Paul installed it to keep the cleaning lady out when we're not home. Just punch it in during your designated times." I stared at my phone. They'd installed a lock to keep me out of the kitchen. I punched in the code and made myself a sandwich. I ate it standing up watching the clock. At 12:58, I cleaned up every crumb, wiped down the counter twice and went back upstairs. That night at 5:30 I came down for dinner. "Oh Mom," Jennifer said, barely looking up from her phone. "Paul and I are going out tonight. There's some leftover chicken in the fridge. Help yourself." They left at 6 o'clock, dressed up, laughing about their reservation at some new steakhouse. I ate leftover chicken alone at the kitchen island, then cleaned up and went back to my room at 6:28. This was my life now. The first month was humiliating. I paid the $700 on the first. Money I desperately needed for a security deposit on an apartment. But I had nowhere to go yet, no job prospects. Every morning was the same routine. Wait until exactly 7 o'clock. Make minimal coffee. Avoid conversation. Disappear. Jennifer barely spoke to me unless it was to remind me of rules. "Mom, you left a water glass in the sink last night." "Mom, your laundry time is Saturday morning, not Sunday." "Mom, we need the living room Friday night. We're having people over." Paul ignored me completely unless I broke a rule. One Tuesday I came down at 6:52 a.m., 8 minutes early. I was desperate for coffee and thought 8 minutes wouldn't matter. Paul was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. "It's not 7 o'clock, he said. "I know, I'm sorry. I just thought." Rules exist for a reason, Margaret. If we make exceptions, they become meaningless. "You're right. I'll wait." I stood in the hallway for 8 minutes, watching the digital clock on the microwave, waiting for permission to enter the kitchen in a house I'd helped buy. The breaking point came 6 weeks in. I got an interview. Finally. An office manager position at a dental practice. The pay was half what I used to make, but I didn't care. It was something. I was so excited. I came downstairs that evening during my designated kitchen time, and Jennifer was there making dinner. "Honey, I have great news. I have a job interview tomorrow at 10 a.m. Jennifer looked up. "That's nice, Mom. It's for an office manager position at Sterling Dental Associates. It's not what I used to do, but it's a start. I'm so relieved." "Good. That's good." She went back to chopping vegetables. I was thinking, maybe after I get this job we could celebrate. Maybe go out for lunch together. Just the two of us. Jennifer stopped chopping. "Mom, I'm really busy." "We'll see." The next morning I got up at 5:30 a.m. I wanted to look perfect for the interview. I showered, did my hair, put on my best suit, the navy one I'd worn to Jennifer's wedding. At 6:45 I came downstairs to make coffee. Just 1 cup. Be quick. Paul was in the kitchen. He looked at me, then at the clock. "It's 6:45. "I know, I'm so sorry. I have a job interview at 10 o'clock and I need to leave early to prepare." "The rules apply every day, Margaret. No exceptions." "Paul, please. I just need 5 minutes to make coffee." "No." I stood there in my interview suit, my hair done, my makeup perfect, and I started crying. "Please," I whispered. "I'm your mother-in-law. I just need coffee. You're a tenant who's breaking house rules. Go back upstairs." I went back up and sat on the bed, shaking. At 7 o'clock exactly I went back down. Paul was gone. Jennifer was in the kitchen. "Mom, your eyes are all red. What happened?" I told her. The whole thing. How Paul had turned me away. How I just needed coffee for my interview. She sighed. "Mom, you can't expect special treatment. We have rules for a reason. Jennifer, I'm your mother. And this is my house. If you don't like it, find somewhere else." Something inside me snapped. "I gave you $75,000, I said quietly. "The wedding. The down payment. That was my retirement money. Money your father left me. That was your choice. We didn't force you. I did it because I love you. Because you're my daughter. And I'm letting you stay here, aren't I? I could have said no. I looked at her, really looked at her. At this stranger wearing my daughter's face. You're charging me $700 a month to live in a guest room. You lock the kitchen. You won't let me use the living room. You treat me like an inconvenient stranger. You are inconvenient, Mom. You lost your job. You lost your house. That's not my fault. The words hit me like a physical blow. Get out, Jennifer said. I have to get ready for work. I left the kitchen, grabbed my purse, and drove to my interview on an empty stomach with a pounding headache. I didn't get the job. They said I seemed distracted and not fully present. When I got back to the house that afternoon, there was a note on my bedroom door. Mom, Paul and I discussed it. The arrangement isn't working. We need you out by the end of the month. That gives you 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I sat on the bed and let myself cry for the first time since Robert died. Deep, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I had 2 weeks to find a place I couldn't afford, with no job and barely any savings left. My daughter was evicting me. That night, I sat in my room and took inventory of my life. Bank account. $2,400. Unemployment. $1,100 per month for 2 more months, then nothing. Savings gone. Given to Jennifer. Robert's life insurance. Gone. Given to Jennifer. My retirement fund. I'd cashed it out to try to save the house. Job prospects. None. Family, just Jennifer. And she wanted me gone. I opened my laptop and started searching for apartments. Studio apartments in Sterling Falls started at $1,200 a month plus utilities. I'd need first month, last month and security deposit. $3,600 minimum. I had $2,400. I looked at rooms for rent. Shared housing. There was a room in a house with 4 college students for $550 a month. Another in a house with 420 friendly roommates, which I assumed meant drugs. At 58 years old, I was going to be homeless. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Robert. What would he say if he could see this? His little girl, the daughter he'd adored, treating me like garbage. And that's when I remembered the box. I sat up, my heart suddenly pounding. Box. I got out of bed and pulled my largest suitcase from the closet. At the very bottom, under my winter sweaters, was a small fireproof lockbox. I'd forgotten about it. Inside was Robert's personal paperwork from before he died. I'd packed it away after he passed and never looked at it again. Too painful. Opened it now. His birth certificate. Our marriage license. His death certificate. And underneath, a manila envelope I didn't remember. Opened it. Inside were documents. Legal documents. With Jennifer's name on them. I started reading. 20 minutes later I sat back, my hands shaking. Oh, Jennifer. Oh, sweetheart. You have no idea what you've done. The documents were from Robert's estate planning. See, when Robert died we had assets. The house paid off. His 401k. $280,000. His life insurance. $250,000. Some stocks and bonds. Another $90,000. Jennifer was listed as the beneficiary on the life insurance. $250,000 directly to her. But the rest, the 401k and the investment accounts, those came to me as his spouse. That's what I'd been living on. That's what I'd given to Jennifer. But here's what I'd forgotten. What grief had made me forget. 2 months before he died, Robert had revised his will. I'd been with him at the lawyer's office, but I was so distracted, so busy with work, that I hadn't read the final documents carefully. Robert had created a trust. The trust stipulated that if I died or became unable to maintain independent housing, meaning homeless, the house and remaining assets wouldn't go to Jennifer outright. They'd go to a charitable foundation Robert had established. The Robert Brennan Memorial Fund, dedicated to helping displaced workers. Jennifer would get a small annual stipend, $5,000 a year, but the bulk would go to charity. Robert had done this because I found a letter he'd written to the lawyer, paper-clipped to the trust documents. I love my daughter, but she's become materialistic. Entitled, "If something happens to Margaret, I don't want Jennifer to benefit from our hard work if she hasn't taken care of her mother. This trust ensures Margaret is protected. If Jennifer steps up and cares for her mother, she'll inherit eventually. If not, the money helps people who actually need it." My hands were shaking as I read Robert's handwriting. He'd known. Even 6 years ago, he'd seen what Jennifer was becoming. Kept reading. There was more. The house I'd lost to foreclosure. It wasn't fully foreclosed yet. I had a right of redemption period. 6 months to pay the back payments and fees to get it back. Total amount needed, $18,000. I didn't have $18,000. But Jennifer did. I'd given her over $75,000 in the last few years. And according to this trust document, if I became homeless, she'd lose her inheritance. I thought about this for a long time. Jennifer didn't know about the trust. I'd never told her. After Robert died, I was so destroyed by grief that I just signed whatever the lawyers put in front of me. Collected the insurance money. Given Jennifer her $250,000 from the life insurance policy because Robert had wanted her to have it. But I'd never explained the conditions on the rest. The next morning during my kitchen window, I asked Jennifer to sit down with me. "I need to talk to you about something important." She sighed. "Mom, I have a meeting at 9 o'clock. This will only take a minute. It's about your father's estate." That got her attention. "What about it? Did you ever read the full trust documents? The ones the lawyer gave us after your father died?" "I got the life insurance money. That's all I needed to know. There's more. Your father set up a trust for the remaining assets. His 401k, the investments. About $320,000. Jennifer's eyes widened. $320,000. Where is that money? I've been living on it. I gave you $75,000 of it. For your wedding and house. There's still $245,000 left. I watched her carefully. In theory. But there's a condition. What condition? If I become homeless, if I'm unable to maintain independent housing, the money doesn't go to you. It goes to a charitable foundation your father established. The color drained from Jennifer's face. What? Your father was worried about me being taken care of. He put a clause in the trust. If something happens to me and I'm not properly cared for, you don't inherit. The money goes to help displaced workers instead. Jennifer stood up. That's not fair. That's my money. Dad wouldn't do that. He did. I have the documents upstairs. You're lying. I stood up too. Jennifer, in 2 weeks you're evicting me. I have nowhere to go. No apartment will take me with my income. I'll be homeless. And the moment that happens, you lose your inheritance. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing. But Mom, you can't. You have to find somewhere. I've tried. I can't afford anything. I gave you my savings, remember? Jennifer pulled out her phone. I'm calling Paul. She stepped outside. I could hear her through the window, her voice rising. Paul, we have a problem. A big fucking problem. She came back in 10 minutes later. How much do you need? She asked. For an apartment. I need first month, last month and security deposit. About $4,000. But even then, my unemployment runs out in 2 months. We'll give you the $4,000. Consider it a loan. A loan. Jennifer, I gave you $75,000. That was different. That was gifts. No. If you want me to maintain housing and protect your inheritance, it's not a loan. It's payment for the care I gave you your entire life. We stared at each other across the kitchen island. Fine, she said finally. 4,000. But then we're done. No more asking for help. I took Jennifer's check and found a studio apartment. $1,100 a month, 50 square feet, a bathroom the size of a closet. But it was mine. I moved out of Jennifer's house on a Saturday. She and Paul weren't home. They'd gone to some charity gala. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night in my tiny studio, I sat on my air mattress, couldn't afford a real bed yet, and thought about what Robert had written. If Jennifer steps up and cares for her mother, she'll inherit eventually. She hadn't stepped up. She'd charged me rent, locked me out of the kitchen, and evicted me when I became inconvenient. But she didn't know the full extent of the trust's conditions. I pulled out the documents again and read them carefully. There was a clause I'd mentioned to Jennifer, about me being homeless. But there was another clause I hadn't mentioned. The trust could be contested if the beneficiary, Jennifer, demonstrated willful neglect or financial exploitation of the grantor's surviving spouse. Charging me rent while I was unemployed could be considered financial exploitation. Evicting me while I was vulnerable could be considered neglect. Robert had been thorough. He'd loved Jennifer, but he'd loved me more. And he'd wanted me protected. I had a choice to make. I could leave it alone. Accept my small studio, my poverty, my daughter's cruelty. Let her have the money when I died. Or I could fight. I thought about Robert. About our 34 years together. About how he'd worked himself to death to provide for us. About his last words to me in the hospital. Take care of yourself, Maggie. Promise me. Promised. The next Monday, I called the lawyer who'd handled Robert's estate. His name was Martin Chen, and he was semi-retired now, but he remembered me. Mrs. Brennan. It's been a long time. How can I help you? I need to discuss my husband's trust. Specifically, the conditions around the inheritance. Of course. Can you come to my office? I met with Martin that afternoon. I brought all the documents, the trust, Robert's letter, and my own records. Bank statements showing the money I'd given Jennifer. Texts from her charging me rent. The eviction note. Martin read everything carefully. Mrs. Brennan, he said finally. I'm sorry you've been going through this. Your husband was a smart man. He anticipated this might happen. Can the trust be contested? It can. Based on what you've shown me, you have grounds to argue that Jennifer has financially exploited you. The rent, the eviction while you were vulnerable. Robert specifically included language to prevent this. What happens if I contest it? The trust goes into review. A judge examines the evidence. If they find that Jennifer has violated the care conditions, the distribution changes. Instead of Jennifer inheriting when you pass, the money could go to you immediately to secure your living situation. Or it could go directly to the charitable foundation. I could get the money now. Yes, to use for your own care and housing. After all, the point of the trust was to ensure you were taken care of. If Jennifer isn't doing that, and if you need the funds, the court can release them to you. I sat back in my chair. How long would this take? 4 to 6 months, most likely. You'd need to file a petition. There would be a hearing. Jennifer would be notified and could contest it, but based on your evidence, I think you'd prevail. I thought about Jennifer's face when she realized what she'd done. How she'd treated me, believing she was entitled to Robert's money no matter what. Let's do it, I said. File the petition. Martin nodded. I'll need a retainer. Since you're in financial hardship, I can reduce my usual fee. Say $2,000. Half of what I had left. But it was worth it. Do it. The petition was filed on a Tuesday. Martin had warned me that Jennifer would be served with papers within a week. She'd know I was contesting the trust. I didn't have to wait long. Thursday night, 9 p.m. Pounding on my apartment door. Opened it. Jennifer stood there, her face red, papers crumpled in her fist. What the fuck is this? She screamed. Jennifer, please keep your voice down. There are neighbors. You're suing me. You're trying to steal my inheritance. I'm not stealing anything. I'm ensuring that your father's wishes are honored. She pushed past me into my tiny studio. She looked around at my air mattress, my few belongings, my clothes hanging on a rack because there was no closet. "This is your fault," she said. "You lost your job. You lost your house. That's not my problem. I lost those things after I gave you $75,000, Jennifer. That was your choice. You're right. It was. Because I'm your mother and I loved you. But your father made me promise to take care of myself. And he set up that trust to make sure I could. You manipulated him. You made him put those conditions in." I almost laughed. "Jennifer, I didn't even remember the conditions until a few weeks ago. I was in grief. I signed whatever the lawyers told me to sign. But your father knew. He knew you might do exactly what you've done. What I've done. I let you live with me. You charged me rent when I was unemployed. You locked the kitchen. You evicted me. You treated me like a burden instead of your mother. Because you are a burden." The words hung in the air. Jennifer seemed to realize what she'd said. She took a breath. "Mom, please. Don't do this. That money. Paul and I have plans. We want to renovate the kitchen. We're talking about buying a vacation house. We need that money. You want a vacation house. We've been working hard. We deserve it. And I worked hard for 32 years. Your father worked himself to death. That money was earned through our labor, our sacrifice. And your father wanted it used to take care of me if I needed it. You don't need it. You have unemployment. You have this apartment. My unemployment runs out in 6 weeks, Jennifer. I'm 58 years old with no job prospects. I'm living in a 400-square-foot studio with an air mattress and a hot plate. What do you think happens when the unemployment ends?" She looked away. "You'll find something." "Will I? Will I find something that pays enough to live on? Or will I end up in a shelter? Or in my car? That's not my fault." "No. But it is your choice. You could help me. Actually help me, not charge me rent and lock me out of the kitchen. But you've made it clear that's not what you want to do." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. But I could see the anger beneath them. "You're really going to do this? You're going to destroy our relationship over money? You destroyed our relationship when you told me I was a burden. I'm just making sure I can survive." She turned toward the door, then stopped. "Paul said I should cut you off completely. I didn't want to believe him. But he was right. You're toxic, Mom. Everything you touch turns to shit. Your job, your house, and now this. Get out," I said quietly. "Gladly." She slammed the door so hard the walls shook. I sat on my air mattress and didn't cry. I'd done enough crying. For months later we went to court. The hearing was held in a small courtroom in the Sterling Falls courthouse. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Martin had prepared me well. We had bank records, text messages, the eviction note, photos of my apartment, my unemployment statements. Everything documented. Jennifer and Paul had hired a lawyer too. Gregory Walsh, from a fancy firm in Philadelphia. Expensive suit, expensive briefcase. The hearing started at 10 a.m. Martin presented our case first. He walked through the trust conditions, Robert's letter, and then the evidence of how Jennifer had treated me. "Your Honor, Mr. Brennan's intent was clear. He wanted his wife cared for. He specifically included provisions to prevent financial exploitation. The respondent, Ms. Jennifer Brennan Morgan, charged her unemployed mother $700 per month in rent and contributions, representing more than 60% of Mrs. Brennan's unemployment income. When Mrs. Brennan struggled to find employment, the respondent evicted her with 2 weeks' notice, knowing she had no means to secure housing. Judge Morrison looked at the bank records. Mrs. Brennan gave the respondent $75,000 in gifts over several years. Yes, Your Honor. Wedding costs and down payment assistance. This was Mrs. Brennan's retirement savings. The judge looked at Jennifer. And you charged your mother rent after she gave you $75,000? Jennifer's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, Mrs. Brennan was a tenant in my client's home. The rent was reasonable for the market. She was your client's mother. And she was unemployed. That doesn't obligate my client to provide free housing. It does, the judge said, when there's a trust specifically designed to ensure the mother's care. Jennifer's lawyer switched tactics. Your Honor, Mrs. Brennan chose to give those gifts. My client didn't coerce her. And Mrs. Brennan is an adult capable of managing her own finances. If she made poor financial decisions. Mr. Walsh, the judge interrupted. Are you arguing that helping one's daughter financially is a poor decision? I'm arguing that Mrs. Brennan's financial situation is the result of her own choices. Martin stood. Your Honor, may I present Exhibit F? He handed the judge a printout. It was a text exchange between Jennifer and Paul that I'd forgotten about, from back when I was living with them. Jennifer to Paul. How long do we have to deal with her? Paul to Jennifer. 3 months, then she's gone. Hold your nose and cash the rent checks. Jennifer to Paul. I just want Dad's money already. She needs to hurry up and die or something. The courtroom went silent. Jennifer's face went white. That was a joke, she said quickly. I didn't mean. You texted your husband that you wanted your mother to hurry up and die, Judge Morrison said. So you could inherit. It was a joke. We were frustrated. The judge looked at her for a long moment. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Brennan, what are you requesting from this court? I stood up. Your Honor, I'm requesting that the trust funds be released to me now, to secure stable housing and living expenses until I can regain employment or reach retirement age. After that, if there are remaining funds, they can be distributed according to my late husband's wishes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more.